About a year ago, Emily and Nathan made the bold decision to leave behind their familiar life and relocate to a new city in search of a fresh start. Nathan had received a significant promotion, one he had worked tirelessly for, which became the catalyst for their move. The town they chose sat farther south, where the climate was milder, the skies sunnier, and the air carried the promise of new beginnings. But with that change came sacrifice. Friends were now voices on the phone, instead of warm presences across the table, and everything familiar had been traded for the unknown. While Nathan stepped into his new role with purpose and momentum, Emily was left to navigate her own transition, re-entering the workforce after a brief hiatus. Luckily, she soon found a position at a bustling administrative office in the heart of the city. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and the energy of the workplace was enough to keep her from feeling adrift. In time, she formed an unexpected friendship with Sophie, a sharp-witted, long-standing employee whose knowledge of the company and of life in general seemed limitless. At first, Sophie had been distant, her advice laced with dry sarcasm and the kind of guardedness that hinted at a complicated past. But as the weeks passed, Emily's patience wore through Sophie's defenses, and their relationship blossomed beyond the bounds of office politics and water-cooler chatter. They began sharing coffee after work, opening up in ways that made Emily feel connected in this new, unfamiliar world. Sophie, in her mid-30s and single, wore her independence like armor. She joked about her failed dating life, often recounting encounters that ended in ghosting or awkward silences. Her tendency to blurt out offbeat comments, usually as a defense mechanism, made second dates nearly impossible. She'd had a handful of serious relationships, or so she believed. For the men, they had been fleeting, forgettable moments. One evening over dinner, Emily casually mentioned that Sophie had planned to meet someone new at a quaint cafe, but had been ghosted again. Nathan, tired from work and only half listening, raised an eyebrow and scoffed. "A cafe? Are you sure she didn't mean a bar?" he asked with disbelief. "I've never been there, so I can't say," Emily replied softly. "But you know Sophie doesn't drink. Not this time, at least," she added, recalling the last time Sophie had arrived at their apartment in tears, clutching a bottle of Merlot, her heartbreak spilling into incoherent ramblings. The next day, Emily set out to meet Sophie, expecting to console her again. But unbeknownst to her, Sophie had told a half-truth. She hadn't been ghosted at all. In fact, she had mustered the courage to attend a speed dating event hosted by a local group. The venue was cleverly arranged, women seated at numbered tables, while men rotated around them, each interaction lasting just a minute before the buzzer called for the next. Emily only realized what was happening as she walked through the door and took in the setup. "Sophie, you lured me into a speed dating event," she whispered, stunned. Sophie's eyes widened with guilt. "Please don't be mad," she pleaded. "I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone with me. You don't have to actually participate, just stay." But the organizers weren't lenient. No spectators were allowed. And when a last-minute cancellation left an empty table, they looked at Emily with hopeful eyes. Not wanting to ruin Sophie's evening or create a scene, she agreed, planning to simply tell each man she was happily married and uninterested. The first few rounds went as expected. The men offered polite compliments, then backed off once they noticed her wedding ring. A few of the younger ones joked about the thrill of flirting with a married woman, but none left any real impression. Emily sat stiffly, trying to disappear into the chair as she waited for it all to be over. Across the room, she spotted Sophie nervously fumbling through her introductions, cheeks flushed and posture tense. Then, the final round began. A man in his early 40s slid into the seat across from her, tall, sharply dressed, with a smile that seemed to catch the light. He looked at her with warm, confident eyes. "I noticed you the moment you walked in," he said, his voice low and smooth, "and I saw your ring. So relax, we're just talking. Nothing wrong with that, right?" Emily flushed, caught off guard. He introduced himself as Liam, said he, too, was married, and that his wife was fine with him attending events like these. Claimed it was about professional networking more than dating. According to him, many women there were entangled in messy personal situations, and these events made for surprisingly fertile business connections. His confidence was disarming. He was clever, quick-witted, and undeniably attractive. Emily felt a flicker of something unexpected, a strange pull, a guilty curiosity. And Liam seemed to sense it. As the buzzer rang, he leaned in slightly and slid a business card across the table. "How about coffee tomorrow?" he asked with a knowing smile. "I'd love your thoughts on a cafe idea I'm working on." That night, when Emily returned home, Nathan asked how things had gone. She gave a vague reply. It was fine, omitting the part about the speed dating, about Liam. It didn't seem necessary. Nothing had happened. Nothing real. Yet. She grew quiet as the night went on. Her thoughts kept drifting to the card, tucked away in her coat pocket. She didn't contact Liam, not right away, but his presence lingered like a whisper, like a possibility she couldn't entirely dismiss. Over the next few days, Emily began pulling away. She spent more time with Sophie, walking through the city, drinking coffee in long, meandering conversations that never quite said what they meant. Nathan noticed. At first, he chalked it up to the stress of adjusting to their new life, but his unease grew when, one afternoon, he saw Sophie holding hands with a man in the park, radiant and smiling, very much not heartbroken. That evening, he casually asked Emily how Sophie was doing. "Same as always," she replied with a sigh. "A wreck. She cried for hours." Nathan blinked. The image of Sophie he'd seen earlier, glowing, relaxed, happy, flashed in his mind. Something didn't add up. The next time Emily said she was going out with Sophie again, Nathan made a quiet decision. He left work early, parked near her office, and waited. When she finally emerged, he watched her walk briskly to a sleek, dark car. The driver leaned over, kissed her, and handed her a bouquet of roses. Nathan's world tilted. He followed them through the city, heart pounding, until they pulled into a hotel parking lot. That was enough. Rage boiling, he stormed toward the car. His fist connected with Emily's cheek before she could speak, and the man barely had time to react before Nathan struck him too. "You traitor!" he roared, voice trembling with fury. "Give me your keys. You're not coming back." Shaking, Emily dug through her purse and handed them over. She tried to speak, but he silenced her with a sharp wave of his hand. As he turned to leave, he caught the glint of a wedding ring on the other man's hand. The betrayal cut even deeper. Back home, Nathan began packing her things. He tossed her dresses into trash bags with mechanical rage. As he shoved clothes into a suitcase, a small card fluttered to the floor, the same business card Emily had hidden that night. Curious, he looked up the company online. Liam's face stared back at him, charming and polished. Nathan's anger turned cold. He found Liam's wife, reached out, and exposed everything. She was furious. What she did next remained unknown, but the fallout continued. Liam's wife happened to be close friends with Emily's boss. Days later, Emily was fired, without explanation, and since she had been working off the books, she received no severance, no final check. Now unemployed, homeless, and with no one left to turn to, Emily found herself utterly alone. Sophie had moved in with her new partner and could offer no help. The friends she once had were miles away. Nathan had shut every door, and Emily, who had once chased excitement in the name of rediscovery, stood on the edge of a life, shattered by choices she could never take back.